Math 140. Second video for the week. This one's going to be all about probability. Remember, sampling. Check out your acrobatic. I gave you the page numbers to find the details on that. But if we're looking at probability, number 10 is a good example for that. I give you all these numbers. All right, let's change it up. Before I get into those probabilities, I'm just going to organize these numbers in a little grid. You don't have to. It helps me think about the numbers. 422 people did not take a flight. Well, then no flights, 422 people. 623 people said one flight, 623. You get the idea. We can go fill out that chart. You don't need to do that. It just helps me when I ask, say, 3 flights. Well, it really helps me just organize that number. But wait. I'm getting ahead of myself because this says probability. We got to make sure we know the formula for probability. Probability is always going to be a fraction. And notice the bottom of that fraction says the total. Well, I need to say how many total people am I considering in this case. Add them up. 1,879. It's on the bottom of my fraction. The top of the probability fraction is successes. Typically, I use the word success because typically you think of probability like gambling, like winning, successes. In this case, it's not necessarily winning and losing, but it's just I'm talking about 3 flights. Now that number comes into play. 3 flights, 167 people. So that's typically, in this case, that's what we mean by success. We got a fraction, calculated it as the division, we get a decimal, and we're good. You can move the decimal 2 places, get yourself a percentage, and that's fine. I will take either answer. But at the very least, I'm looking for a decimal answer. Another version of this, very similar, probability. So I know it's going to be a fraction. 2 or fewer flights. Well, okay, first of all, I know the total. That's still the same. Success in this case, what does it mean to be a success? 2 or fewer flights. 2 or fewer flights, all of those people. So just add them up. 1,320 goes on top of the fraction. Calculator, thank you very much. Move the decimal 2 places, I get a percent. You give me either answer, I'm fine. That is your probability, the process to get probabilities. Now it's interesting, I did probabilities question 10 because question 8 is asking about the odds of winning. By the way, you got 577, switch the number a little bit. All right. But if I'm asking about the odds of winning, you actually need probability in order to solve odds. So I got these out of order. Should have been solve probability first, then do the odds. All right, we need a formula. Odds of winning. There you go. The odds, you got to take one probability, and you got to take a second probability and just put them in a fraction. All right, well, let's do 2 probabilities. We know how to do the probability of winning. How many wins over the total number of games you played? So total number is 200. What is it, 40 wins? There we go. Thank you very much, calculator. 0.02. 0.2. I'm sorry. Odds, probability of losing, losses divided by total. All right. Same thing. We got 200. I think you can understand where that number 160 comes from just based on those numbers. I win 40. I lose 160. I get a fraction. I get a decimal. Now I can use those 2 numbers and get the odds, put them back in the fraction. The winning on top, the losing on the bottom. Calculator tells me that. All right. That is your odds right here, 0.25. However, typically, and you probably heard people say, 1 in 4 odds, 1 in 10 odds, and so forth. Here's a strategy. I'm going to challenge you to do this on the homework, is when you have this fraction right here, I'm going to actually multiply those numbers by 10. Why 10? Because if I multiply by 10, that's moving the decimal. It's getting rid of the decimal, and it gives me just a quote-unquote normal fraction. All right? So when you get this fraction right here, I challenge you, you got to find a number to multiply it by so you get rid of the decimal. And then you can reduce that fraction. And then this fraction right here allows me to say it's 1 in 4 odds. If you give me this number right here, you're not wrong. But if you do this process, get rid of the decimal, reduce the fraction, and then write it in words, that's more, how do I say, that's more correct. So that's the answer I'm looking for. I'm going to challenge you guys to get that. And speaking of odds, question number 9. Now it's dealing in terms of money. I give you this thing about the Kentucky Derby. I'm making up some ridiculous cyclops. All right, net profit. Net profit. Here's a little math hint. When you hear the word net, you got to think subtraction. Take the money coming in, subtract out the money I bet. There's your net profit. Net means subtract. Okay, now we got to find the odds. The odds, if you have a gambling scenario, so to speak, that was the odds in the last version. Whoa. That was the odds in the last problem. In this case, in a gambling scenario, it's going to be the profit divided by the bet. Well, that's real easy now. That's really easy based on what I just did. I bet $5. My profit was 57. No. We don't want the decimal. Remember, we want to use this fraction, and then we can write it in words. 57 in 5 odds. Give that a shot. Solve the probability questions first, then check out the odds problems. But hopefully that'll all make sense. You can get that homework all submitted by Sunday. Once that homework is submitted, I'll get you that midterm exam. Questions? Email.